So tomorrow's the day. Tomorrow night, 8 p.m. Best case, narrow opening. The middle case, more pressure, more signals, maybe limited action, but nothing game-changing. Clock resets, tension stays. We all know what the worst is. The deadline holds, the strikes begin, infrastructure is hit. Iran responds, maybe not necessarily where we're looking, but maybe where it hurts us the most. Because once that first strike lands, if it lands the way he is outlining here, this is no longer about the Strait. This is about credibility. This is about survival. This is about response. I mean, he put a lot of chips on the table.
Check out this great clip over here with Glenn Beck talking about what he believes is the root of all of the war that we see. We'll watch this clip together and then we'll talk about it. But first, hit that subscribe button over there in the corner. We'd love to stay in touch. Check this out.
Tuesday will be Power Plant Day and Bridge Day, all wrapped up in one in Iran. There will be nothing like it! Exclamation, exclamation, exclamation. Open, and he says the whole thing, the effing Strait, you crazy bastards, or you'll live in hell. Just watch. Praise be to Allah. President Donald J. Trump. Now, there are several ways to look at this, okay? Oh, dear God, the president's gone insane. Oh, my, a man who has never had a drop of alcohol in his life, somehow or another on Easter decided to drink. Or he's doing something else. Now, I'm not claiming to know what exactly that tweet is all about, but I'd like to tender a guess here. This sounds like a man who is trying to compress time, okay? A deadline. He named targets, power plants, bridges, infrastructure. Dems, of course, are screaming for the 25th Amendment because they think he lost his mind. And that is an important subcategory of this story. I'll get to it here in a second. But let's assume that this is intentional. He didn't lose his mind, okay? Because Donald Trump is not careless. Whatever you think, when it comes to war, he takes it very seriously. To the leadership in Tehran, especially the IRGC, the Islamic Revolutionary Guard, the tone is not the headline. The clock and the specific bombing targets are. That's the headline. Because they have to ask themselves a simple question right now. Is this guy serious? Is this the last warning? Or is this the first move? We don't know. And I have always said that I've wanted our enemies to always look at our president and go, would he do that? And them not know. Now, that's what they're thinking. Is he serious? Is he not? But what about the Iranian people? That's really important that we look at what are the Iranian people taking from this, quite honestly, crazy-ass tweet from the President of the United States. Is he playing crazy strategically? I believe so, but what are they thinking? Next. All right, so we're just talking about the president's tweet, the kind of nasty one, that used all kinds of language and an approach I've never seen any president ever make. And I want to get into that in a minute about the language that he chose to use, because it is a little unnerving. But I think that's the point. I'll get into that here in just a second. But first, let me pick it up where I left off. And what are the American people? I told you, or what the Iranian people. I told you what the IRGC is mostly thinking. And they're saying, is there going to be any movement? Is this just a threat or is this real? Is he crazy? Will he do it? Remember, he's dealing with crazy people. They have to believe he's just as dedicated to his crazy idea of wiping them out as they are to their crazy idea of wiping us out. Okay? That's what he's dealing with. That message was not for you. It was for them. Now, this is the part that it gets dicey for me, because there is this one scenario that Washington has always hoped for, we have hoped for, where the pressure cracks the regime and the people see it and they go out on the street, and there's a moment that, they go out on the street and they free themselves. That's what we hope, okay? That's optimistic. It could happen, but it could happen. But President Trump understands something that I don't think most presidents have, or at least would admit it out loud, and that is breaking a country is really super easy. Rebuilding it is where you bleed for decades. And this is why Marco Rubio is so important, because he has changed all the upper floors of the State Department and gotten all of those people out like, we'll just rebuild it and bring them democracy and they'll love it. They'll be just like us. That never works. We've seen it. The Iraq War, the war in Afghanistan, over and over and over again. Regimes fall, power vacuums open, militias rise, civil wars begin, and then suddenly what was supposed to be a decisive strike becomes generational in its entanglement. He knows this. He said it for years. He campaigned against those stuff. So if he knows that collapsing Iran outright would trigger exactly that kind of long, grinding chaos, why is he speaking this way? Why threaten the infrastructure? But not total regime destruction. Really critical. He's saying, I'm going to knock everything out, but I'm not going after a total regime change. The reason why he's doing it, I think, is because this is the narrowest path left between humiliation and full-scale war. You can't humiliate him. We don't want a full-scale war. So think of the structure of the threat. He's not saying we're invading, we're toppling your government. Instead, he's saying we're going to make the cost of your behavior in the strait unbearable super fast. That's not regime change language. That's coercion. This is what it looks like when a president is trying to force a decision without triggering total collapse. Now, I'm saying this, and I am trying to, because for me, at least, the president has earned my respect, and he has earned enough trust from me to make these decisions. And by the way, what am I going to do about it? Protest? We're in it. We're in it. We have to make the best of it and hope for the best and plan for the best, but also know that it could fall apart at any time, but not root for it as some people are. He's trying to cause pain, targeted, visible, undeniable pain without crossing the line into occupation or nation building or open-ended war. It's a brutal calculus, and it may work, it may not work. Hurt him enough to change the behavior, but not enough to shatter the state. Because once that happens, we don't control what comes next. We control the rebuilding of it. But Iran is not Iraq. It's over, I think it's almost twice the size of Texas. It is a massive place, much more complex, more ideologically driven, far more embedded in the regional proxy networks. If it fractures, it doesn't just fall, it spreads, and it spreads all over the Middle East. So what the president is not seeking is recklessness. But this may be the last rung on the ladder of what you can do before it's a point of no return. So what do we do about this? Well, we watch. Okay? What do we watch for? For the next 48 hours, until tomorrow at 8 p.m. Eastern time, we watch. The Strait of Hormuz is the center of gravity, so we watch the water, the first thing. If tankers begin to move, even quietly, even selectively, that tells you something has shifted behind the scenes. And we're getting word today from Pakistan that they have a good offer on the table that we are negotiating right now that would be a ceasefire and would open the strait immediately. We don't know, but we'll see. Second, watch what's coming out of Tehran. If you hear words like technical arrangements, temporary access, maritime safety, they're looking for a way out. If you hear words like martyrdom, final resistance, punishment, you know what that means. Third, watch for military posturing, actual movement, okay? Naval repositioning, airspace closures. This is a big one. Embassy warnings, cyber disruptions. Militaries don't bluff in logistics. And then we have to watch Washington. If the tone shifts from threat to explanation, if you start hearing justification, framing, legal language, I think that means that action is closer. That's how modern, our public at least, is prepared for conflict. So tomorrow's the day. Tomorrow night, 8 p.m. Best case, narrow opening Face-saving compromises, ships move, both sides claim victory. The crisis bends, but it doesn't break. The middle case, more pressure, more signals, maybe limited action, but nothing game-changing. Clock resets, tension stays. We all know what the worst is. The deadline holds, the strikes begin, infrastructure is hit. Iran responds, maybe not necessarily where we're looking, but maybe where it hurts us the most. Because once that first strike lands, if it lands the way he is outlining here, this is no longer about the strait. This is about credibility. This is about survival. This is about response. I mean, he put a lot of chips on the table. He cannot become Barack Obama. That's what they're really weighing right now. Is this Barack Obama? I got a line in the sand, and you don't cross that line. Then they cross it, and he's like, I got another line in the sand. This is more of a fuchsia. Don't cross that one. And then they cross that one. That's what they need to know. Is he just Barack Obama, or does he mean it? So what should you take from this? Well, it's not normal presidential language. It may be a signal that we're no longer in a normal phase of diplomacy. And there is a difference between strength and volatility. Strength says, I know where the line is, and we're never going to cross it. Volatility says, I don't know, I might redraw it at any moment. Right now, the world in Iran is trying to decide which one it is seeing from the president. And tomorrow is going to answer that question. Because by then we'll know, was this a threat designed to force an off-ramp, or is this final warning before impact? Watch the ships, watch the language, watch the actual movement, watch for signals. And only those paying attention are going to see it before it arrives. Let me see if I can get Jason in on this. Before I talk about the language, Jason, do you agree with that analysis?
Yeah, 100%. I think that the things that we really actually should be watching right now, very specifically the Strait of Hormuz, everything that's going on within the negotiations right now, as reported through Pakistan, which is the intermediary, is it's the Strait of Hormuz and the ceasefire as being the two biggest items that are on the table right now. The problem is, we're getting mixed signals, because I'm seeing that the Iranians are rejecting that. That's per Al Jazeera, but that's Al Jazeera, so who really knows? And that the president is just kind of saying, well, this is one of the options that are available, but we'll see. I don't know how you can actually trust the Iranians on the Strait of Hormuz issue.
The understandable and predictable question that is swirling through everyone's mind is this going to become another Iraq? And again, that is an understandable fear. But if we look carefully at the facts, the situation with Iran is fundamentally different. First, the nature of the strikes themselves. This was not an invasion. It was a targeted strike against the leadership and military infrastructure of the Iranian regime. No massive ground force, no occupation, no attempt to rebuild a country from scratch. And that alone changes the entire equation, because the Iraq War became endless because America tried to do something incredibly difficult, to remove a dictator and then build a new nation in a society deeply divided along tribal and sectarian lines. Iraq wasn't a unified society. It was a fragile mix of Sunni tribes and Shiite factions and Kurdish groups, dozens of competing militias. Once Saddam Hussein was gone, those rival groups began fighting each other for power. America got stuck in the middle of a civil conflict. Iran is different. Iran is one of the oldest continuous civilizations in the world. Persian identity goes back thousands of years. The population is overwhelmingly Persian and culturally unified. So many of those that oppose the regime, which is a significant number of people, a significant percentage, 80% or so, they still share a strong sense of national identity. And that matters because in Iran, the conflict has never primarily been tribe against tribe. It's been people against the regime. So for years, we've seen protests across Iran, women burning their hijabs in the streets, students chanting for freedom, workers striking against the government. The regime rules through force, not through love. And that creates a completely different dynamic than Iraq. Secondly, Iran's military system is centralized around the Revolutionary Guard leadership. When that leadership is weakened, the regime's grip weakens with it. In Iraq, there were dozens of militias. In Iran, the power structure is far more concentrated. And thirdly, the strategic stakes are enormous. Iran has spent decades funding proxy militias across the region. Hezbollah in Lebanon, militias in Iraq and Syria, the Houthis in Yemen. A decisive weakening of the Iranian regime would not just affect Iran itself, it would reshape the entire balance of power in the Middle East. It would weaken terrorism networks, it would strengthen regional stability, it would remove one of the greatest long-term threats to global security. Now, none of this means that the situation is simple. History always humbles those who think that they can predict everything. But the lesson of history is also this: sometimes decisive action prevents far greater wars later. If a regime that's threatened the region for decades finally realizes that the world will no longer tolerate its aggression, that moment can change the future. And sometimes the most courageous decision that a leader can make is not to wait until the danger grows larger. Because the goal of strength is not endless war, the goal of strength is peace. And history may yet show this moment, if handled wisely, as the moment that the Middle East began to change for the better. This is the game-changing moment, potentially. If you like this content overall, hit that subscribe button over there in the corner. We'd love to stay in touch. Take care.